Yo, what is up guys? Del Boy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. Bringing you another one of my heavyweight prospect videos. By the way, for those who are interested, I've actually got a playlist on my channel of all of the heavyweight prospect videos in which I've done. So if you want to check those out, go ahead. But this video is about a prospect by the name of Michael Coffie. Now, Michael Coffie is an American heavyweight prospect. He is 12-0 with 9 knockouts as a pro. And, you know, his story, in my opinion, is actually quite interesting. Michael Coffie actually is 34 years old. You may say, well, 34 years old, you can't be a prospect at that age. Well, I would disagree in the case of Michael Coffie. A very late start in the sport of boxing. He was formerly a Marine, so big up to him. And he actually only started boxing at 29 years old, an extremely late start in the sport of boxing. And it goes to show, if you're somebody who's in their 20s and you've never tried boxing and want to, listen, you should always go for it. You never know what could happen. And in the case of Michael Coffie, you know, he's actually quite advanced for a guy who's only been boxing for 5 years. He definitely deserves credit for how quickly he's learned on the job. And by the way, obviously, starting at 29 years old, Michael Coffie never really had any great amateur experience going into the pros. When he was in the amateurs, he did quite well for the short time he was there. But, you know, no extensive amateur background. And, you know, he's got some interesting physical dimensions. He is listed as 6'5" with an 83-inch reach. And he's a big guy all round. He's quite physically intimidating. He weighs in and around the 270 mark. So he's quite a big heavyweight, but he's in shape, pretty muscular, and certainly a physically strong guy. And, you know, like I say, for a guy who's only been boxing for 5 years, he does actually have some ability. Good puncher, seems to carry power in both hands. And all around he's quite physically impressive. The thing that I'm actually most impressed about though with Michael Coffie, considering he's only been boxing for 5 years, is how naturally comfortable he looks in the ring. When a guy's actually throwing punches at him, he doesn't seem to panic, he rolls with the shots quite nicely, he'll fire back in the exchanges, and he's, you know, he looks so comfortable in the ring considering he's only been boxing for 5 years. A lot of the time with late starters, you know, sometimes you can see that they naturally aren't as inclined to fighting as a guy who would be if he started at 10 years old, for example. But Michael Coffie seems like a natural fighter in there, extremely comfortable, and, you know, nothing really seems to faze him in the ring. His composure, to me, is one of his most impressive attributes, considering where he came from. He's also got relatively good timing. He's a pretty good counter-puncher. I would describe his style as like a boxer-puncher / counter-puncher. He's got a nice counter left hook, nice counter right hand. He can work the body a bit, you know. He does the basics quite well. Like I said, he's nice and calm in the ring. And on top of that, he seems to carry some sort of punching power. And he's not scared to mix it up, you know. He'll fight fire with fire. And all in all, for a guy who started so late, I actually think Michael Coffie looks quite good, to be honest with you. Again, I'm not saying he's going to be like a heavyweight champion or anything like that. I don't expect that. In fact, I don't expect this guy to even become like a top 10 heavyweight. But the fact that he's got this respectable skill set already, and he's beaten a couple of good guys, you know, it is worthy of credit, in my opinion. In his 12 fights, he's beaten the tough punching journeyman Joey Abel. He's beaten the unbeaten prospect Darmani Rock, who was 17-0. He knocked Darmani Rock out in 3 rounds. That was his last fight. He also beat the unbeaten prospect Luis Eduardo Pena. So yeah, I find it quite impressive that he's beating these guys with much more experience in pretty good fashion. You know, he knocked out all of those guys who I mentioned. And he's going to be an interesting fighter to follow. He's certainly got a fan-friendly style. Like I said, he's not scared to mix it up. He's not scared to take risks, carry some sort of punching power, and he's got a fun style overall. And at 34 years old, listen, you can't really afford to be slow with this guy. You've really got to start throwing him in at the deep end, which they have done to a certain extent, considering his experience level. But his level of competition from here on out has to keep on getting better. If he truly wants to be something in the division, at 34 years old, despite his lack of experience, he needs to start stepping up. He's actually been mentioning fights with the likes of Dominic Breazeale and Gerald Washington. I think they would be great step-ups for Michael Coffie at this stage, and in those fights, I would certainly give him a chance, no doubt about it. And, like I say, ultimately, I think Michael Coffie is certainly somebody to keep an eye out on. Again, I don't think this guy's going to go all of the way per se, but I certainly think this guy's going to be fun to follow in his career. I think he's going to give us some really entertaining fights in the heavyweight division at a certain level, so I would certainly recommend Michael Coffie as a prospect and as somebody to keep your eye out on in the division. Like I said, he's got a fan-friendly style, seems to hit quite hard, got a nice punch arsenal. He can basically throw every punch in the book. Left hook, left uppercut, right hand, jab, body work. He's got a good punch arsenal. He takes risks, he can punch. Big guy, certainly a guy worth looking out for in the heavyweight division, and ultimately, in my opinion, a fun prospect. So, share your thoughts below. What do you make of Michael Coffie? I like his story, I like where he's come from, and seems like a pretty cool character as well. So, listen, I'll be rooting for him. Anyway, share your thoughts below. Beanie Guy Delboy, peace.